No charges tonight for the driver of this pickup truck who continued to drive through protesters last night even as they pounded on the hood of the car.
Whether it's getting shoved out of the way, soaked, or simply tripping over themselves, these protesters found out the hard way that the universe has a sense of humor. Plastic bottles and pepper spray. Nothing screams, "Save the planet," like sipping water from single-use plastic bottles. Here, we've got a bunch of young protesters in Paris, bravely fighting for climate change by sitting in the middle of the road. Real power move. But wait, the police arrived to kick things up a notch with some pepper spray, because why not add a little seasoning to the protest? While some are crying, others are casually chugging from plastic bottles. The irony is alive and well, people. Courtside chaos. Forget the game, this protester just stole the show. During Game 4 at the Target Center, an animal rights activist jumped over seats right by Timberwolves owner Glenn Taylor and his wife. Talk about making a scene. But don't worry, the security guy stepped in fast, handled it like a boss, and escorted the protester out in no time. Chaos at Capitol. Well, this driver definitely wasn't in the mood to wait. Caught in the middle of a George Floyd protest near the Colorado State Capitol, the driver decided to plow straight through the crowd. One protester even ended up on the hood, but that didn't slow them down. They just kept going. Pride Month showdown. Things got heated fast at Satakoy Elementary as parents protested a Pride Month assembly. Some were furious, shouting about protecting their kids, while LGBTQ supporters showed up to defend the event. It wasn't long before the two sides got in each other's faces, leading to some pushing and a lot of yelling. Police had to step in, forming a line between the groups like they were refereeing a brawl. What started as a school assembly turned into a full-blown standoff. Who knew a Friday at school could turn into this much chaos? Dragged off. Looks like karma arrived on 4 wheels in Berlin. Climate protesters thought they could bring the city to a standstill, but the drivers had other plans. Instead of sitting in traffic, some decided to be the karma, dragging activists off the road by their hair like they were pulling weeds. These drivers weren't about to let a few protesters ruin their commute. Guess the lesson is, if you block traffic, karma might show up in a hurry. Ink, bagpipes, and karma. When protesters meet fed-up drivers, things get creative. Insulate Britain activists decided to block major roads in London, but drivers had other ideas. One guy brought a bagpipe and knelt in front of a protester, blasting the tunes right in their face. Because why not add a musical twist to the chaos? Field tackle. An animal rights protester ran onto the field, making a bold statement until he got tackled by the player, NFL style. Uninvited drama. Looks like not everyone got an invite to the Summit of the Americas, and some folks downtown are not happy about it. The scene gets even more chaotic as we spot the police moving in, trying to arrest one particularly stubborn protester. Road rage. Frustrated drivers had enough. During a Just Stop Oil protest in central London, activists blocked the road, bringing traffic to a complete stop. One guy, desperate to get to the hospital, shouted at them to move, but the protesters weren't budging. So, what did the drivers do? They jumped out of their cars and started dragging the protesters off the road themselves. When London traffic meets protests, you know things are going to get heated really fast. Neck grab drama. Nothing says civil discussion like an impromptu neck grab at a fancy dinner. Here we see Mark Field, clearly auditioning for the role of bouncer, as he grabs a Greenpeace protester by the neck and swiftly escorts her out. She's just trying to save the planet, but Mark's having none of it He's more focused on saving dinner. Karma has teeth. Karma works fast, and this time it has sharp teeth. In Hartlepool, a bold protester, thinking he could outsmart riot police with some cheeky taunts, ended up getting a little more than he bargained for a police dog's teeth in his backside. Guess he didn't see that one coming. Protester versus lady. We have a group of peaceful protesters sitting on the road, totally unfazed, when a woman goes on a rampage, tossing their cardboard signs like they're confetti at a bad party. But the protesters, they don't move at all. They just sit there, like statues, while this lady goes back and forth, furiously throwing their signs. It's like she's fighting with cardboard ghosts that couldn't care less. No reaction, no response, just pure silence. Shirtless showdown. We have a group of protesters sitting in the middle of the road, unhappy about new vehicle restrictions at High Park. But one driver didn't have it. He bumped one of the protesters with his car. There is no time for traffic delays here. Just to spice things up, the driver gets out, takes off his shirt, and confronts the crowd. It's like a dramatic scene from a bad action movie. After the heated exchange, the driver drives off. Slow roll karma. Well, this is awkward. Just Stop Oil protesters thought they could bring everything to a halt by blocking a coach. But the bus driver? Nah, they weren't having it. The coach just kept creeping forward, while the protesters awkwardly jogged alongside, thinking they could stop it. No sudden stop, no dramatic confrontation, just the bus calmly rolling along. Gotta love it when karma shows up, but takes its sweet time making the point. Glued to failure. Well, here's a sticky situation that didn't quite stick. In Oslo, climate activists tried to glue themselves to Edvard Munch's famous painting, The Scream, but museum staff were way quicker than their adhesive. Motorcyclist karma. Looks like this motorcyclist had places to be and zero patience for protests. In yet another Just Stop Oil protest, activists were blocking the road, trying to stop traffic. But this biker wasn't having any of it. Instead of waiting around, he just revved his engine, plowed right through the crowd, and took off like nothing happened. Confused protesters. Nothing says mixed signals like protesting the police, only to be saved by them. This guy decided he'd had enough of protesters blocking the road and figured he'd teach them a lesson. Roads are for cars, not sit-ins. Dancing with karma. During the finale of Let's Dance Sweden's version of Strictly Come Dancing, an activist for Återställ Våtmarker thought he'd steal the spotlight with a protest, but instead, the camera stole the show by knocking him right off the stage. Karma doesn't stop to save you. This truck driver, cruising through a protest, wasn't about to stop for anyone. One overly confident protester thought he could stand his ground and make the truck come to a stop, but he couldn't. The truck gave him a little nudge, just enough to make him rethink his decision. Unlicensed protest. A truck driver decided to keep moving right through a group of unlicensed protesters blocking the road. And yes, the road is meant for cars, not sit-ins. When asked, the protesters admitted they weren't licensed to be there and did not work with the police or anyone else. Vegan protest gone wrong. Vegan activists barged into Salt Bay's restaurant to protest eating meat, but security quickly tossed them out. The fun didn't stop there, though. One of the activists then appeared on Piers Morgan's show, arguing how meat eating is ruining the planet. Pickup versus protesters. On the 68th MX Street night of protests in Portland, a pickup truck decided the best way to handle a protester's fence was to smash straight through it. But it didn't stop there. The truck also pushed a motorcycle up the road like a bulldozer with attitude. Big Mac versus avocado. Piers Morgan decided to tackle the hypocrisy of animal rebellion protesters by chomping down on a Big Mac, all while calling out their love for almonds and avocados. After all, these vegans are apparently responsible for the deaths of billions of bees to satisfy their avocado toast cravings. Trucks, flags, and pepper spray. In this wild footage from Portland, pickup trucks decked out in Trump 2020 flags plow through a crowd of Black Lives Matter protesters. But it doesn't stop there, because what's a drive-through without a little extra spice? The drivers are seen spraying what looks like pepper spray as they roll past. Takes the wheels. Well, here's some instant karma served hot. In newly released dashcam footage, protesters blocking the Rose Festival's parade route in Portland got more than they bargained for when a driver decided he'd had enough and plowed right through their makeshift blockade, nearly hitting a few, including some kids. It was all caught on his own dashcams from 3 different angles. Morning commute madness. We have got protesters lining up smack in the middle of 2nd Avenue during the busy morning commute. With chants against ICE and signs everywhere, it's safe to say these drivers aren't getting to work on time today. But it doesn't end there. The police eventually step in with saws and tactics to cut through the barricades. These anti-ICE protesters are taken to jail by, you guessed it, the same authorities they were protesting. Irony really knows how to take the wheel sometimes. Flower power chaos. 3 Just Stop Oil activists creatively protested by tossing bright orange powder all over an award-winning garden at the Chelsea Flower Show. As they made their dramatic statement, security was quick to step in, and the activists were arrested for criminal damage. Blockade busting. In this wild scene, protesters blocking the road to Burning Man got more than they bargained for when a police truck plowed straight through their setup, smashing everything in its path, including a bit of the truck itself. And just when you think it's over, the truck stops, the cops casually step out, and without a second thought, start arresting the protesters like it's just another day on the job. No fuss, no mercy. Soup meets sunflower. In a messy protest against fossil fuels, activists in London threw tomato soup at Van Gogh's Sunflowers painting at the National Gallery. Luckily, the masterpiece was safely behind glass, so no harm was done except to everyone's nerves. After that, they smeared paint on their hands and stuck them to the wall, making quite the scene. One gave a fiery speech, but it didn't last long. Kebab versus activist. These animal activists thought they'd guilt-trip a guy peacefully eating his kebab by storming him and shouting. But instead of feeling bad, the guy had the best response ever. He just licked his kebab aggressively in front of them. Vegan lecture. A guy is just trying to enjoy his KFC when a vegan activist comes over to give him a lecture on why he shouldn't eat it. But honestly, seeing someone interrupted mid-bite for a protest is a bit odd. The guy's just there for some fried chicken, and now he's in a philosophical conversation about ethics. Protest goes wrong. Here, we can see Just Stop Oil activists blocked a road in South Kensington, causing a pregnant woman to crash her car. And trust me, things got intense. The woman stormed out, screaming at the activists, while another guy jumped out of the car, delivering some not-so-peaceful feedback to one of the protesters. What started as a roadblock turned into a boxing match, with the guy punching and kicking the protester to the ground. Protesters versus police. Sometimes, karma doesn't wait. In Detroit, a police car drives right into a crowd of protesters, knocking a few to the ground. As if things couldn't get more chaotic, one protester ends up riding the hood of the car for a free ride. Fed up driver. In this video, protesters were out bright and early, standing in the middle of the road, stopping traffic. But one driver had zero patience left. Hollywood chaos. Nothing says Hollywood like drama, and this protest had plenty of it. A speeding pickup decided to crash the party at a Black Lives Matter march, hitting a protester and speeding off like it was auditioning for Fast and Furious. Slow walk shenanigans. If there's one thing worse than rush hour, it's slow walkers causing it. In this video, Just Stop Oil protesters have blocked the road, walking at a snail's pace, while a truck and a line of angry cars crawl behind them. The traffic is backed up, drivers are losing it, and even the folks in their apartments above are fed up. The protesters keep strolling like it's a casual Sunday walk. People are shouting, honking, and losing patience, but these walkers, they're in no rush. Stubborn protesters. Here we go again. Just Stop Oil protesters doing what they do best. But one guy had enough. Water bottle frustration. It's another day, another Just Stop Oil protest blocking the road and making everyone's life a bit more miserable. Frustration hits an all-time high when a driver, clearly fed up, opens his water bottle and tosses the water at one of the protesters sitting on the road. Statues on the road. Here we go again. The Just Stop Oil protesters are back, sitting in the road, stopping traffic, and driving everyone mad. This time, a woman needs to get to the hospital and is screaming at them to move. But these human statues aren't budging. They are not talking or reacting, just sitting there like their mission in life is to make traffic jams worse. Protesters' tug of war. Nothing says morning frustration like seeing protesters glued to the road again. In this clip, two men drag a protester to the side of the road, but the stubborn guy just stands up and sits right back down. Round two, same thing, same result. But here's the best part. A blonde woman grabs a female protester by her hair and drags her off to the side like she's taking out the trash. By now, these road-blocking protests have become an everyday headache. So watching this tug-of-war between protesters and the public is weirdly satisfying. Protesters versus police and bulldozer showdown. Protesters rally for Palestine, waving flags and demanding their rights. Things quickly escalate when a bulldozer arrives, attempting to break through the barricade. The protesters stand firm, refusing to back down. The police attempt to push the crowd back with batons, but the protesters continue to resist, showing no signs of giving up. It's a full-blown standoff, with neither side willing to retreat. Furious drivers versus stubborn protesters. We see protesters sitting on a London road, blocking traffic and frustrating everyone around them. A furious man decides he's had enough, grabbing protesters by their jackets and dragging them off the road. But in true protester fashion, they keep coming back, determined to hold their ground. Meanwhile, a desperate woman pleads with them to let her car pass so she can get to the hospital, but they won't budge. Police soon arrive, arresting several climate activists, while drivers remain stuck and furious. These protesters refuse to let go of the road despite being dragged away. If you liked watching karma do its thing, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of these wild moments, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Let us know in the comments which part was your favorite, and thanks for sticking around. More crazy stuff is on the way, so stay tuned.